Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number 367. We have a new guest that we haven't had on before. We will get to him in a minute. I'm very excited to talk to him about something big that he has kind of spearheaded. And I think anyone that's interested in comics, even if you're not local to Arizona, I think you're going to find this interesting and just something I want to know more about. But we'll do what we always do. We'll kind of go around the room, introduce ourselves. I'm Scott Circlin. You can find, well, you know what? I was going to say you can find me right here on my YouTube channel, but this is not my YouTube channel. I'm broadcasting from Corey's channel because we're kind of I'm taking a break from my YouTube channel. I will be back, but Artcasters will kind of remain on both Josh and Corey's channel because I'm testing some things out with the algorithm and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, so if
Jeff Lafferty pointed out that you're not very good at taking a break since you announced you were taking a break and then you're on YouTube like 2 days later.
Exactly.
No, well, Jeff Lafferty, if you're watching, first of all, I post a video. I was posting a video every single week for over 8 years, at least one video a week, if not sometimes 5 a week. And so even if I take 1 week off, that's a big deal. But
that is a break
for a little bit. Yeah, it's a break. But anyway, whatever. So, but because that's a good kind of segue. Because I've been on YouTube for 8 years and did all those videos. I've got over 1,000 videos on my YouTube channel. You can go to Circworks, just search Circworks on YouTube. Tons of videos on how to make comics, including my series Making Comics 101. It's the most comprehensive course for free that you're going to find on making comics, and that's on my YouTube channel, as well as a slew of other videos, most of which are about comics or creativity or, making a living as an artist or any of that kind of stuff. Those videos will remain on my channel. They're not going anywhere. So go check them out. If you haven't, you can also find stuff at my website at circworks.com. I have a number of digital products with templates and brushes and all kinds of cool stuff to help you make comics, as well as my own comic, Young and the Dead. It's a kids versus zombie adventure story. Just think Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead. There's 5 issues available now, and I'm working on the final issue. The only other thing I wanted to mention is coming up in maybe a couple weeks, I think, Free Comic Book Day. I will be at Surprise Comics in Surprise, Arizona. I'll be doing sketches, and I'll be there with my books and everything. So if you don't already have plans for Free Comic Book Day, definitely come and check it out. It's a nice big store. They've got tons of cool stuff. And I will be there with some other artists doing signings and stuff like that. Corey, what about you?
As always, you can find my stuff at coreykerr.com. I've got shirts and everything else.
Mugs.
Yes, different things. So for some reason, I have completely washed out the graphics. I don't know why that's happening, but shirts, mugs, all that different type of stuff. And you can see all the animations. And I don't have anything behind. I'm not waiting on any festivals or anything now. So all the animated shorts are up. You can watch all the stuff I've done for free. It's all available and all that jazz. So, and if you want to hear about things, you can jump on to my email newsletter at coreykerr.com/email. That's actually powered by Substack, which is probably where I'm going to be doing most of my social media from now on, because they just kind of did a little bit of a Twitter, Instagram clone thing on top of the email stuff. So if you want to jump over there and get away from the noise, it's a lot of creators and it's not a lot of algorithms. So I like it.
Nice.
All right. Josh.
All right. You can find my stuff on joshuakemble.com. There you can order my graphic novel, Jacob's Apartment, which is a slice of life coming of age graphic novel about 2 roommates that are polar opposites in their early 20s. The main character, Jacob, his father is diagnosed with cancer, and as he's starting his career, and he's thrown him for a loop and starts questioning his belief system and trying to kind of figure out why we are here, the big questions in life that you get hit with in young adulthood. And he ends up finding himself drawn to his roommate, who is philosophically the polar opposite of him. And as they're drawn together, their dreams and reality interweave in a doomed romance story. Like if you took Ghost World and Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind, put them in a blender, you like that flavor, that's Jacob's Apartment. And then there's 2 stories, which is my graphic novel about faith and mental illness, and that's trying to destigmatize heavy conversations about mental health. And so those are my 2 graphic novels. And if you want to watch me make other graphic novels, I am on YouTube. I've been pretty much gone for like a week because that's how long it takes me to do taxes nowadays with the CPA. So that's what I've been doing in my cartooning time. So I've had to take a break from even working on the book and stuff just to, at the hair of the last minute, get all my taxes in order with royalties and all that other nonsense that comes with freelance and art direction. So yeah, so that's it. But yeah, if you want to see regular content, I'll be back on YouTube almost every other day to daily, streaming, creating graphic novels, and also probably playing occasional games of Risk. And that's at Joshua Kemble on YouTube. And I'm really excited about our guest because I've heard really good things about this convention. So yeah.
Okay. All right. So Ryan,
yes.
Anything you want to promote? Anything briefly you want to do to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I was speaking of taxes. You can just get your 6-month grace period on that, which is what I plan to do this tax season.
Oh, I didn't know.
Which is what I do about every other year, because the thought of doing taxes cripples me.
I hate it. Yeah, it's the least creative thing.
I have a book that I drew and colored that should be solicited through Scout Comics later this summer. Well, should come out later this summer. Should be solicited any day now.
Awesome.
Called Death Comes for the Toy Maker, and it's kind of a retelling of the Gilgamesh myth with like a little twist on it. That was fun to work on, and the next book in the Impossible Jones series by Carl Kiesel and David Hahn just finished funding a couple hours ago on Kickstarter, and I color that. I'm the colorist on that book, and work that I have out now is Justice League versus Legion of Superheroes. I colored that. Trade's been out for a couple months, and Family Tree at Image Comics for Jeff Lemire and Phil Hester. That's been out for a while. There's 3 volumes of that. Yeah, and other than that, I color comics and I draw comics pretty much.
Awesome.
And you can find stuff on super75studios.com. I don't update it as much as I should, but if you go to super75studios.com, that's kind of everywhere you need to be.
Yeah, and there's a link to that in the description in case you don't want to type everything. You can just click on the link. It'll take you there, as well as a link to what we'll be talking about in a minute, which is the Arizona Comic Book Art Fest. But yeah, so I've kind of been aware of Ryan for a while. He's local to Arizona, where I'm from, and I've seen him at conventions. I've kind of bought some of his books and stuff like that. And I've just kind of seen what you do, and you do a lot. Like you said, you pencil, ink, color. You've done your own creator-owned work. You've worked for other independent companies. You work for the big 2, big 3. It sounds like you've done a little bit of everything. So quite a bit of pedigree there. And I've kind of seen, like I said, I was showing Ryan this, and he was kind of laughing because this is one of his old. It's probably one of your first self-published books, probably. I'm guessing, maybe. I don't know how long you've been doing comics. But
my first book I ever worked on was published in 2007, I think. So, but that one that you just showed is probably from 2012, maybe. Probably a couple, more than a decade old. So yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. So, and I've kind of, and now I'm looking that you're doing some awesome color work and everything, and as well as your, like I said. I just heard you said the one you were doing with was it Carl Kissel?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I heard him. I think he was just on. If I'm not mistaken, he was on the art. Not art. I'm thinking. What's the
Artcasters?
No, not Artcasters. The other one. Comic Lab. I think he was on there talking about the Kickstarter and everything. So I didn't know you were involved with that, but it sounded like a really cool book. So.
Yeah, I think they had maybe 2, like a full trade and then a couple oversized one shots, and with the previous colorist, and then I was on for the last one, which was like a 50-something page book, and then I'm on for this one, which is also a 50-something page book, and it's just a throwback. Like Impossible Jones is just a great kind of throwback superhero book. Just really kind of old school superhero stuff, which I love. I'm happy that they have me on board for coloring that. And if you missed the Kickstarters, which if you're listening, even if you're watching this live, you missed it because it ended like an hour and a half ago. I think they're collected like a year later through. I think Scout puts them out like a year later. So if you missed the Kickstarter, you'll still be able to see the book. It'll just be out, a little bit later through Scout.
Yeah, and also there was another thing I noticed. We had I got this book because we had Richard Fairgray on a while back, and he did this book, Blastosaurus. And then I looked on the back, and you've got Adventure Van, which you were an illustrator on.
I've shared a hotel room with Richard. Yeah,
awesome.
Adventure Van was that was a fun book too. It was the guy who runs Golden Apple Comics in LA, Ryan. He published a couple books.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and so that was a fun book. I did it with a writer named Michael McMillan, who's also an actor. Just a cool dude, and it was a fun book to do. It's kind of an all ages book, which I don't do a lot of all ages stuff, especially stuff that I have a hand in creating. I just don't do a lot of creator or all ages stuff for whatever reason. So that was just a fun book that, when people come up to my table at a con, I could be like, oh, you shouldn't read this violent, super violent Jeff Lemire, super violent Jeff Lemire book. But I do have this other trade that I have a bunch still. So here, why don't you have a $5 trade for your kid, and then maybe mom and dad will buy the $15 trade for themselves.
That's so funny. I've talked about wanting to do all ages, like an all ages book just for that, because my convention experience of like, I have these really heavy, like indie underground stuff. And then it's like, these kids will come up and want something. And I'm like, I wish I had something to sell them, but I have to be like, that's not a comic for you, So excuse me, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I saw a comment here from Gary who said that sharing a hotel room with Richard sounds like a terrifying experience.
It kind of went off the rails a little bit when he was on, but yeah.
It was actually kind of fun because we had never met until that day, and then it was just like I didn't want to pay for a hotel room, and my publisher was like, well, we have a room, you just got to share with the guy you've been sitting next to for a couple hours. And I was like, okay, I don't care. I mean, I snore. That was about it. But yeah, it's I as I get older, those kind of things become less and less common, as like sharing rooms and like 5 guys in a hotel room just camping out during a con or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's still fun. It's a fun little camaraderie thing. It's a fun little, it's a thing you only do, and it only kind of makes sense if you're in that atmosphere. So yeah, I don't mind. Like I said, people probably get the worst end of it because I snore like a monster. So
yeah, I know. I'm the same way. So I don't hear it, but I hear tell that I snore pretty bad. So
yeah, that's how it works.
Got to go in for one of those sleep tests or something. So we'll see how that all pans out. So the other thing, Ryan, that I know you've got your own podcast that you do.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I have a couple of them. I have one's only available on Spotify. It's called Oh Yeah, That's Great. It's a music podcast. I said earlier that I moved here in '95, and the first Scott, since you're from Arizona, you'll know Zia Records. So the first day or two I was in Arizona, I went to Zia Records. I bought the Tank Girl soundtrack, and I applied for a job, and I got a job. So I met my friend Bill there, and we're still friends to this day. And we decided to do a music podcast, kind of going back to the music that we loved, back in the 90s, and just, shooting the shit, I guess, about music.
Nice.
And then I have a podcast that's my main podcast I've been doing for a while, called The Illustrious Gentleman. And it's usually myself and Scott Godleski, who draws comics for DC, and he does some image. He created Copperheaded Image. He does a lot of books for DC. He's doing something now for another publisher that I can't name, but it's kind of like this, where we just get around and we chat and talk about comics, or talk about creating comics, talk about movies, complain about Disney shows, sort of documenting my friendship with my comic book friend Scott. So when I'm old and senile, I can listen to those and watch those and sort of, a journal of my time in comics, I guess.
Look back fondly and be like, those Disney shows still suck, or whatever. Yeah.
They're not going to get better with age.
Yeah, that's why we do this show. It's just us hanging out, and we like to bring people into the fray. So,
sure.
So like I said, one of the main reasons why I wanted to reach out to you was because you started a comic convention, and it's a comic convention on paper, I didn't unfortunately didn't get to attend, but like our friend Gary, who's in the chat, did. And he spoke very highly of it, and it's just something that I've been wanting, especially to have in Arizona for a while. And hopefully we'll start seeing more of these type of conventions springing up. But it's kind of a novel idea of a comic convention that's actually focused on comics and not general pop culture and everything like that. It's a curated show, and it's just about comics. And it must have been somewhat successful, because it looks like you're doing another one, and I'm hoping I can be part of that, because I had plans to go out of town, and I didn't realize the dates were the same dates. I was like, man, because I was trying to get in, and you were pretty filled up as it was, so I don't know if I would have got in anyway. But so tell us a little bit about. I'm really curious. I can only imagine it was something like, oh, we really need a convention like this, and no one else is going to do it. So you actually, stepped up and like, okay, I guess I get to do this. So
yeah.
But you tell me in your own words.
Yeah. So prior to this, pretty much the whole time I was in Flagstaff, so from 2011 until last year, basically, minus the COVID year, I did free comic book day events. You mentioned that you're going to be at Surprise Comics. Like this year, we're doing an event. I'll plug it right now from the jump. This year, ASCAF is doing an event at Samurai Comics at the Mesa location and the Chandler location. We'll have Derek Robertson out, co-creator of The Boys, Andrew McLean, creator of Headlopper, Jeff Johnson, comic book artist, founder of the Drink and Draw Social Club, and also he did a great Wonder Man series in the 90s. Those guys will all be out, and we do a big thing for Free Comic Book Day. But prior to that, previous to this, the last decade or so, I did ACME, which is the Arizona Comic Mini Expo, always with Samurai Comics. And I would always try to bring guests out. And if I couldn't get a national guest out, it would just be some of the local guys. But I was organizing that, kind of promoting that for the last decade or so. And then I don't know what, I don't want to badmouth any shows, because that's not what I'm trying to do. But yeah, like a lot of something happened. I saw another announcement with, another show with comic in the Comic-Con name that had, 15 other guests that weren't comic creators, and like 2 comic creators. And I was, and I just sitting, I think I was dog sitting at my parents' house, and I was in a bad mood, and it triggered something in me. And I just started looking up venues, and I just started researching venues. And then next thing I know, like a day passed, and I just put a deposit on the venue. And I was like,
that's awesome.
Worst case scenario, I lose the deposit, so that's kind of why I went with that. But yeah, it's mostly like, I'm fine with pop culture shows. Like I've done fan fusion, when it was,
I think there's room for both, but until now, there really hasn't been both,
Yeah. I've been doing the Big Phoenix show pretty much every year since like 2008. I do Tucson Comic Con whenever they have me out. Like I'm not against big shows, but there's a show on the East Coast called Heroes Con, which is my favorite show of the year. And it's a bigger show. They probably have 35 to 40,000 people come out, but it is all comic creators. They don't have, they might have like vendors in the Artist Alley area that might do kind of crafty stuff and things like that, but they don't have publishers out. They don't have media guests out. Their guest list is, I don't know, a couple hundred creators. Like they just announced today a new batch of guests, and it was like 60 names deep.
That's awesome. And it's a big show. So, there's, so obviously, I mean, it's something that enough people are interested in going and attending. And
and it's like really, I mean, it's cultivated a fan base where they have an art auction every year that some of the best comic artists in the world compete against each other, like who's going to get the biggest bid on their auction piece. It's insane how much effort these artists put into these auction pieces, because it's bragging rights for the next year up until the next Heroes Con. So that show's my favorite show of the year. It's just a great vibe. Everyone, when you're hanging out, it's just a really great vibe. And I'm like, can I bring something like that to Phoenix? But because of the budget was limited, the budget's essentially me. And the space was limited. 100 tables is all we can really fit in the venue that we do the AZ Comic Book Arts Fest at. So that's kind of I mean, my goal from the jump was comic creators and curated. Okay, so the limited space and the limited seats actually goes into kind of my thought process of the show is, like you said early, curated. You know, there's a show in Europe, I think it's in Italy, called Lake Como, and they have artists out, but they only sell 1,000 tickets, and it's so that the people who buy the tickets can spend time with the creators rather than, you know, someone has a line that's 20 people deep and they're signing 15, 20, 30 books at a time. You know, you're going to be in that line forever, and then you're kind of shoot along so that the 10 people behind you can get there.
Yeah.
And that's not really a fun experience for people, I don't think. And so the idea of having limited, so we were limited in seats, but we were also limited in tickets we could sell. Now, we didn't sell out, you know, we didn't have so many attendees that we sold out. But because it's a smaller venue, it felt busy the whole week. You know, it felt busy the whole day. It's a one-day show, which most shows should just be one-day shows. And that's kind of what I want. So I'm trying to bridge this Lake Como, what's the phrase I just wrote up just a few minutes ago? Inclusive, but it doesn't cater to every fan, right? Yeah. So everyone's welcome, but you're not even going to go unless you're into what we're doing, right? And that's kind of what we want. I want to cultivate the fan base that wants to go to this show, because like we talked about, there is fan fusion a couple months later. Yeah, you know, that's going to cater to everything pop culture geeks want. I want my show to cater to people who want to read comics and want to meet comic creators, celebrate comics, celebrate the people that make them. That's kind of what ASCAP's all about. So if I can merge this, you know, limited kind of curated event like Lake Como with a comic forward and comic creator focused event like Heroes, that's kind of my goal. You know, I don't ever see the show. You know, I do have a creative partner in the show, but I don't, you know, and this might change in the years if we get bigger, but I don't really ever want to get that big. You know, I don't ever want to do a 2-day show. Part of the selling point to out of town creators is come for the weekend, but it's a 1-day show.
Yeah.
You know, so we can
have. You had some other events around that, didn't you? Like, I know there was a drink and draw, and
yeah. So basically, the Foundry Phoenix is a hotel and art space, and they're our hotel sponsor for our events. And so we do a drink and draw at their bar in the hotel lobby the night before. We're doing one before Free Comic Book Day this year. And it's just like, let's get the creative community together, get all of our guests together, kind of, you know, one of my favorite things about doing shows is for lack of a better term, BarCon, like hanging out at the show. There's shows that I go to that I routinely go to that are not money making shows, but they're in a fun town, or the people that run it are great, or the people that the other guests are great, you know. And so I'll go to those shows, you know, I'll go to those shows and not make money and just hang out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the thing. Like, I wanted to make it a fun hang for creators, and I wanted to make it like I said, something to focus on comics and comic creators. That's kind of the goal.
I love that. I know Gary Hodges was saying a 1-day show was a relief because I guess he did it. And he also said, I raved about ASCAP for about a week or two after and can't wait to sign up for next year's. So because Gary had such a pleasant experience, and it sounds so creator focused, it's like, you're right about the 1-day thing. Because I even was thinking about it. I'm like, you know, like for a quick drive to Arizona, just do a day. Like that's not a huge commitment. I mean, and yeah, I mean, table costs were reasonable. It just sounds like an amazing show, you know.
Also, there's so many people that wait until the last day to buy anything anyway at a show.
True.
You know, it's like the sense of urgency is built in on a 1-day show. You know, if you want it, get it then.
Yeah, and you know, we don't do a lot of, especially this year, we did like no panels. It was just like a show. We didn't do any side stuff other than the drink and draw, you know. And next year we might do some panels, but if we do them, they're not, you know, they'll probably be at a side venue. So we might have a Friday night event, you know, mix in with our drink and draw. Maybe we have some Q&As with our guests that are coming out next year. But yeah, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but usually by mid-afternoon of the second day of any show, I'm like, this could have been a one, because you're seeing the same people, you know. Especially at like 4-day shows, the people who buy the full event, even they on the last day, they're just like, I'm just here because I have the ticket, you know. Like it's So it doesn't, it to me, unless you're New York Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con, something like that, you could probably get away with no more than a 2-day show. I understand there's logistics. I looked into convention centers. Most of them want you to book the whole weekend. They won't even let you book, partial weekends. So there's a lot of a lot of that goes behind those decisions. Preview nights, a lot of the decision behind even having a preview night is, well, we paid for the venue. So why not try to recoup some of that cost? So yeah, my whole thought is, how can I make it realistically financially viable for me, but also fun for everybody? Like, everybody wants to have fun. Like, cons are work, but if you can make it the least amount of work and more fun,
right?
Then why not?
And you're totally at like a 2 or 3 day show. I mean, especially a 3 day show or whatever, or even add that preview night onto it. You're just wiped as a creator. You're just kind of wiped out, and you want to go and hang out with your friends afterwards. But it's like, but I love that idea. You come for the weekend and work for a day and just hang out. That's so cool.
Yeah.
The other thing, the table cost and the admission price were so reasonable. I mean, even if they were double that, they'd still be way cheaper than most other conventions.
Scott, we want these prices to remain the same. If they were double, no one's gonna go. No one's boothing it if they're double. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, those were really reasonable prices.
But so if you're paying a minimal amount as an attendee to go in and check out the thing, then you've got extra spending money to go around and support some of these indie comics. And whether I get into next year's show or not, I'll be there as an attendee for sure, because I especially it's not just indie comics, but there's just comics, whatever kind of comics. I imagine there's a lot of indie creators. I'm kind of more partial to indie stuff, but I just want to check out what people are doing and talk to people. And so I'm definitely looking forward to next year. And I'm so bummed that I missed this year.
Yeah. There's something totally to be said about, even shows, that I like and that are good shows and fun shows. I sometimes hear from people and they're like, oh man, parking was X amount of dollars and the ticket was, $30-$40. So, with 2 tickets, tickets for a family, tickets for and paying for parking, like, people are like, I'm already in like a hole for like $100, and some of these more expensive shows, you see people not buying stuff, and at our show, $10 admission, I think it was $12 with fees, taxes and stuff. People were spending money, I heard, I heard maybe 1 or 2, negative comments, and who knows if that's more to do with how the people were presenting themselves or whatever. But for the most part, like, a lot of the other creators, this one is my first one this year, so I really leaned into friends. Like Alexis Zirit's a friend, but he has a big fan base and people love him. Mitch Garrett's is a friend, and he's like, if I can get my buddy who's won like umpteen Eisners at the show, why not? And so I think a lot of these guys are like, they're going to do it because they're my friends, and then they were there and they were like, everyone made money, everyone had a good time, almost everyone was busy. Like I said, it's not 100%, but it's, my thought was, if you normally do good at shows, you probably did really good at my show. And if you normally struggle at shows, you might have still struggled a little bit at my show. But again, parking's free. Tickets are cheap. Ticket prices probably won't change next year. They'll probably be $12. Awesome. They'll probably be $12 tickets again next year. Table fees, if anything, are going to go up by like $5,
well, that's reasonable.
Because earlier you mentioned how someone mentioned that people, when they go to cons, they wait until the Sunday to spend money. Also in Arizona, people wait until the day of to buy their tickets for the show. And as someone who's watching ticket sales and stressing over everything, it was driving me absolutely nuts. So
I was curious about that kind of thing, Ryan. Like, with organizing a huge event like that, this is like a huge undertaking, to kind of do, even if it's a smaller convention. So I was curious about like the logistics of it and how much of a headache that was, and the waiting to see if it would succeed. And then the second part is, being an organizer, like I think artists and people who design and draw and stuff are familiar with this. You're a problem solver, but whenever you're trying to solve a problem, like you're of course going to be met with a bunch of criticism. So I'm curious about the two things. Like, did you get a lot of armchair critics of your convention? And then also, did you like, how did you, how was it organizing it? Sorry, that's just a curiosity of mine, because that sounds like a huge undertaking.
Yeah, it was definitely, I wouldn't say it was more than I expected, but the time involved was more than I expected. Like, oh, let me just make 27 guest announcements. I can knock those out. And then like, oh, I don't like those once I did it. So let me change the whole template again. And, you know, so like the time invested was a lot. And yeah, but I mean, logistics, it wasn't that much. I mean, everything's on the, like, you know, I booked the venue because I saw them online and I talked to them, and it was the biggest non-convention center venue kind of I could find.
Okay.
And it was that venue is great because it's all inclusive. A lot of convention centers, you have to pay for tables, you have to pay for the chairs, you have to pay for tablecloths. This venue, it was all inclusive kind of, so it all worked out. But yeah, probably the bigger thing is me trying to balance being a member of this kind of comic art community that I've been a member of for forever. Like in 2007, I messaged Dan Panosian and kind of said like, hey, everyone's starting these drink and draws, but I don't want to just start using the name. Is it cool if I use the name? And he's like, sure, man, use the name.
Yeah. So
in 2007, I started doing the Arizona branch of the Drink and Draw Social Club. Because to me, I just like hanging out with my friends that are comic creators, So, I've kind of been probably more vocal and active in the local comic community than someone who, of my stature probably should be, or would have been, but I just wanted to hang out with my friends, So the problem then comes in is like, curating a show, which I think is very important for what I want to do. I understand big venues that have hundreds of tables, they want to make their money back. They make their money back on table sales and vendor, and selling tables to exhibitors and vendors and stuff. But for me, I really wanted to curate the event, and so not everyone who wanted a table got a table, and it didn't always go over well. And some of those people I know personally, and I understand not everyone's going to be happy about it. And it's just, I gotta come to the realization that like, that's okay. That's not something I can, because like for this show, talking about like going back to talking about Heroes Con, I wanted to do that show for like 5-6 years before they finally, gave me a table and said like, oh yeah, we'd love to have you out as a guest. And I mean, I know the guy who was the showrunner on that. Like we would email back and forth about all sorts of other things. Then I would email him to be like, hey, you got room for me this year? And he just wouldn't answer that email. And I actually respected that. I actually respected that. Rather, I didn't want some BS answer that like, like we can't give you a table this year, man. Sorry. Like there's all these other guys who want tables, and it's a numbers game. I rather than all that, just like, he just didn't respond to those emails, and I so appreciate that. And I understand the rough spot he was in, and that's kind of where I'm in now. Like I'm doing, this free comic day event we're doing. We only have room for like 15 or 12 creators, something like that. I think it's 15, but some people are sharing tables. But yeah, a lot of people want to do events, and I'm sorry, man. Like I do feel bad. And then when I talk to other creators, like, I have like a kind of a brain trust of guys that I complain to and stuff like that. And they always tell me like, don't worry about it, man. Don't worry about it. And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't want anyone to hate me, but also that's just the way sometimes that's how it's got to be. And I hope they understand that. And if they don't, that's not something I can control.
So out of curiosity, sorry, Scott, if you had somewhere you were going to, I don't want to.
Mine will fit in whenever we're ready. So just go ahead.
So the only other thing that I think of is like, okay, so you were mentioning curation. Mm-hmm. I am kind of curious, what, like, obviously you're probably going to have your own method and stuff of what you're doing, but what exactly is it I gather that it's comic specific. So,
Right.
which to me, I know I'm probably preaching for the choir here, like of cartoonists that watch us or whatever, but it's like that instantly has me very interested in this convention, because we've all done that pop culture convention where you're like, even as an attendee, like when you're behind the booth, you want to be able to take a break and check out other cool work. And when all you see is like fan art and posters and stuff, it's just kind of like, oh man, come on. But like when you see other comics and you discover other indie comics and other comic creators, it's just super fun. So what was your creation kind of criterion other than just people having to make comics?
Yeah. So number one was you got to be a comic creator, right? So some people were like, hey, I sell candles with like Pikachu stickers on them or something like that. Those are no-goes from the jump.
Yeah. And honestly, they should have Magikarp if they're going to do it. Sorry, my kid's into Pokemon. Magikarp's the best.
I have adult children that are into Pokemon, so it's
cool. Me too.
So yeah, so my first, and the curating comes from, of all places, a company that I'll never do any of their shows because they'll never have me. The Reed Pop shows are curated. You have to apply, even if you're a professional creator with professional credits, you have to apply for a Reed Pop table and then pay an Artist Alley table fee for if they allow you to get in there. So for all the problems I have with, a company like that large making creators essentially apply for tables and then have to pay for tables, I do like the fact that it's curated, right? So
yeah,
the first step for me is, are they making comics? Is this person making comics? The second step is, are they on a level that... Are they on a professional level? I should say that, like, again, I have 100 tables. I want, when people walk through the aisles, I want people to be like, oh, I saw 100 tables filled with 100 amazing creators.
Yeah.
We had some comic book shops there. We have vendors as well. So let's say 70% are creators. I want that to be a 90% hit rate on those tables. I want people to walk by and be wowed by every table, right? Yeah. So it's twofold. Are they making comics, and are they of something that's what I would consider professional standards? And again, now I'm making myself the arbiter of what's professional. This is something I didn't want to be. Like, this is something I do want a curated show, but there's going to be plenty of people who would be like, who's he to say that we're good or not, right?
Yeah.
But
it's the cost of curation, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I will say there were creators at this year's ASCAF, and maybe even some professional, maybe some guests who personally, their comics aren't comics that I would buy, right? Like, I'm a big two guy. I'm a superhero kid. I've always bought superhero comics. Those are the comics I read.
Yeah.
I can appreciate an indie guy's style. I can appreciate like an indie guy's work, Yeah. And I can also appreciate a fan base for these guys. I can, because, when I announce guests, sometimes the guest that you think is like kind of like the outlier is going to get the most traction online. Like, people love their stuff. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. Like, are they putting the work in? Are they making the comics? Or are they someone who wants to make comics? Or are they someone who makes comics? And are they doing something that is on a level that, I think someone who doesn't read comics at all can walk by and be like, oh, that's a great illustration. Right. Nice. So that's kind of tier 1 and tier 2. And then there's a lot of illustrators and especially in Phoenix, almost everyone who got a table, who got a vendor table this year or an exhibitor table, were local, but, and a lot of them were illustrators. Right. So they're not really doing comics, but they're really good artists. And so that's the thing. Like, I'm not going to turn down an illustrator. I'm saying this is a comic and comic creator focused show. Yeah. But someone who's a super amazing illustrator. Yeah. There's a place for them too, because they're doing amazing work. And most of those people, they're not doing like fan stuff. They're doing their own stuff. Yeah. So I kind of lean into that as well, and also, I got my core group of people that I usually have at these events, and those are going to be my ride or dies, and I love hanging out with them, and I think they all do amazing work. And that it's kind of like that. It's I don't know. As much as I try to beat around the bush and say it's not personal and it's not whatever, it kind of is. You know, it's
It
kind of
always
like
is. Yeah.
it's kind of like what do I dig about this? Do I see the appeal to this? And are they a good hang? Are they a good person to have around? Right? Because there could be amazing artists, but if they're a hassle or they're problematic or something like that, then I don't want anyone to have a bad experience. You know?
Yeah. Scott and I have talked about that.
Attendee.
Yeah, Scott and I have talked about that a lot. Like the more I've been around other cartoonists and stuff like that, the one thing to always keep in mind is don't be a dick. Like, especially if you're starting in comics, just don't be a dick. Like, that's a huge good rule to follow.
I think that's a good rule for any industry, but probably comics of it.
Yeah, but it's a much smaller industry than I think a lot of people realize. So just be nice to people.
Yeah, and Jim Lujan.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jim. He asked if there's an after dinner hangout place. Like, we usually, the thing about where the venue is, where the Phoenix Shrine Auditorium is, it's not an area you're going to be hanging out for dinner and drinks afterwards. That's for sure. So we head back to downtown Phoenix. Like I said, our home base is Foundry. They do a great job promoting us. They do a great job taking care of our guests. So, and the guy who runs the hotel, there's a huge comic fan. He used to work at a comic shop. So, you know, we're just really comfortable at the Foundry. So like this past year, you know, we had the drink and draw Friday night. We had the show Saturday. And after the show on Saturday, we just walked to Roosevelt Row from the Foundry. It's like a 4-minute walk, you know, and we just hung out. So nothing official. Maybe next year there'll be something official. Who knows?
That's awesome.
You know, I work in a studio that's about a 10-minute walk from the Foundry. So we might do, you know, a kegger or something at the studio next year. Like, who knows? But I'm all about packing fun events around the 7 or 8 hours of the show. Because again, I want to, as a creator, I know that this will entice creators to come out.
Yeah.
So if I want to get bigger and bigger guests, the hang is a huge part of that. You know, the one day show, the perfect weather in Phoenix in the late winter, and the hang those are the selling points to the show. And with so many conventions happening, and you know, I can't pay appearance fees, I can't pay guarantees. All we can offer really is, you know, hotel room, maybe some gas money, maybe possibly a flight if the budget's there. But what I can offer is a cool hang, good weather, and a very enthusiastic fan base.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we know obviously that there is a list of people wanting to get into this show, and it's curated and everything. So getting the creators isn't the problem, but I'm wondering, and I assume part of this is some of these creators have a fan base that they bring with them. Mm-hmm. But how do you approach getting the attendees in the door? How do you reach out to them? How do you find them? How do you let them, the people that love comics, know that here's a convention just for comics? Because I found I wanted to go as an attendee just because I love comics, but I'm also a creator. So it came up because friends of mine are exhibiting or whatever.
Right.
But for the people that just like comics, maybe they aren't creators or whatever, how do you reach out to them?
Yeah, we work with local comic shops. You know, this past year we had kind of a weird, again, it was the first time doing it, so I didn't know really how to handle it. You know, we had some comic shops who were partners in the event, or, you know, sponsors of the event this year, and they were kind of pushing it. But we also had other shops who, you know, they just let us hang up a poster and hand out and leave some flyers that they're, you know, and so we had some people show up the day of the show being like, oh, I was just at like Greg's Comics, and he said that there was a show going on. And so we came over, you know, so it's more about, and then I also had other people say like, oh, you know, my local shop is like Dreadnought, and Dreadnought didn't really know about this. And I'm like, okay, so I got to do better.
Surprise knows. I'll definitely talk to Matt and Melissa over there.
Yeah. So I definitely need to do better because I just moved back to the Valley a couple of years ago, and I'm sort of a diehard monogamous, right? Like prior to 2011, I was an Atomic Comics guy. Then when Atomic Comics kind of went, you know, they had their issue there. Then I became a diehard Samurai Comics guy, right? So, you know, and then when I was in Flagstaff, there's one store there, Cab Comics. I love them. So that was my shop, right? So, this past year when I was going around talking to people, a lot of the shops, a couple of them mentioned like, we've never seen you in our shop before. And I was like, yeah, I don't ever get out. I'm not a guy who's just going to drive around the valley visiting shops, but you know what I am now? Like I'm that guy now. Right. So I got to get out and spend more time at like Ash Ave with Drew and Ash Ave and Tempe, Ash Ave Comics, and spend time with Drew. And, and I got to get, out to Dreadnought and all these other shops. And it's not enough so a lot of it's me. I got to be more out there. Now that I know that it's an event that it can make money, at least enough money to put money into promoting it. Now I know for next year I can do more paid promotion for it, which I was hesitant to do this year. And the biggest thing for me though is getting comic shops on board.
Yeah.
To where they're not just letting me put flyers in their store and letting me put posters on their walls that's all fine and good. But if their employees, if the hand-to-hand person providing the transaction isn't telling them like, hey, have you heard about this show? And putting a flyer in their hand, or if every box holder doesn't have a flyer when they go to pick up their comics, if they don't have a flyer in their bag when they pick up their comics, then just having it on the wall is not enough, right? Like I need kind of like a street level marketing of all these comic shops, because it just benefits everyone. In my mind, it benefits everyone. If you get more people invested in comics, then that's a good thing, by all factors. So that's kind of the thing, is I need to be, and I'm also kind of like, it's easy for me to do podcasts and stuff, but in person, I have anxiety issues, and I have sort of it's hard for me to like walk around other events.
Yeah.
And hand out and like hand out flyers and just be like, hey, here's a show that you might be interested in. Like, it's just, that's tough for me. So I have to get better at that. And it's also tough for me to go into shops where I don't really know the owners, the employees, and kind of, because when you're selling the event, you're kind of selling yourself. So I have to get better at that. I've never been a good personal salesperson. But yeah, I think as it goes along, these stores are going to be like, yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Even if they don't, not every shop. I contacted some shops who didn't want to get a table. They didn't want to set up. And I understand that. Like, it might not be worth it for them to haul a bunch of stuff there. And, maybe they're not going to make, it might not be worth their time. And I understand that. But that doesn't mean that I can't get them to sort of get on board with me and like, let's talk about this more. Let's push this more. Let's all kind of do this together to grow this thing.
Yeah.
But with that said, I also have to figure out a way, like, how does this benefit those stores as well, right? Like, how can I, maybe it's during the course of the year, I promote every local comic shop, or I try to do pop-up events or something like that. I talked to Drew at Ash about that a little bit, like, oh, maybe we should do an event here, something like that. So yeah, those are the partners I need more than anything, are the local comic shops, because Phoenix has a huge amount of local creators, but it also has a huge amount of really good stores. Yeah. Like the really good stores outnumber the bad stores by, 10 to 1. And honestly, I don't know any of the bad stores.
Yeah. Name drop all the bad stores. Speaking of not being a jerk in comics, let's just name every single one you should.
Yeah.
No, so it's kind of like the equivalent to, like, you want to be the cool record at the record shop that is like slid under the table to the kid or whatever, where it's like, no, you got to hear Zeppelin or whatever it is, it's like, you got to hear this album, it's a classic. You're that con. That'll be, it's like, you like comics, you should be at this place. And
right.
It's word of mouth, but direct from
it's word of mouth. It's word of mouth, and then like a shady, maybe like borderline drug deal where they slap a QR code into your hand. Like,
I love it.
This is great, but also go click on this link, like,
that's beautiful. That's a good, I think that's a good strategy to specifically target shops too, because you're going to get the readers then, which is what you want at this show.
Yeah. Like, if any given store has, 300 box holders, that's 300 people that I know read comics. Like 100% they're reading comics. So that's my target audience. And if someone's paying for something at a shop, and when they give the receipt, they give a flyer to the show.
So smart.
It's, that person's interested because they just bought the comic. Right.
Yep.
So, there's I was both pleased with how happy it was, and like Gary says, he was there. It felt busy, especially right when we opened. But I'll admit, when I was there, because I kind of worked the front desk for the first hour or so, didn't feel busy. Like it did, like it, in my mind, like I wanted a line. Well, actually, in my mind, I wanted the event to sell out pre-sale, because there's a cap of people that can be in that building. That didn't happen, obviously. And then the line outside, it was good, but it wasn't kind of what I hoped. And I'm like, oh man, like this isn't. Ooh, I'm just, because my biggest thing was I wasn't worried about losing money. I was worried about the people that I convinced to go there.
Yeah, like losing face more.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I didn't want like these guys to be like, oh man, you took your shot, but yeah, it kind of blew. So I didn't want that.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Ryan.
I just said I didn't want that, but I think, as Gary can attest, at least the first couple hours of the show, it felt packed, because you're in a small venue, you're in an intimate venue, so it felt busy. And to me, it didn't stop feeling busy until like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So if I can just get that to, if we could just double that attendance and keep it busy until 6, because like I said, people made money. As the guy putting on the show, the 2 guys who put on the show, we made money. Like it wasn't a ton, but it's enough to take a vacation. So the money wasn't the issue. And then to me, the money's never the issue. I was willing to lose money. Like I said, I put that deposit down knowing there was a good chance I was never going to get that deposit or put the show on.
Yeah.
But it was successful, and there's a lot more that can still happen, and still keep it small and still make it as good as it was. So, that was encouraging. That was really encouraging, was that it felt busy. People were spending money, and there's still so much room for improvement. Awesome. It really, I felt buoyed at the end of the show. I felt good.
And I think even with a smaller attendance than maybe you had hoped for or whatever, I think the people that did come, they were there for one specific reason, most of them, and you had exactly what they were looking for. Where if you have a bigger show, everyone's looking for something different, So, I mean, it doesn't take a huge number for it to make successful for the comic book creators there, because that's kind of what what we're focusing on. Another thing I wanted to loop back around, and just you kind of said something that I just wanted to, for anyone watching, when Ryan said that he, he's not the best at reaching out to comic companies and doing that kind of stuff. The most important, one important thing I want to just pull out and let all you guys know, because most of us creative people, a lot of our creative people are introverted. But the thing is, Ryan didn't let that stop him. He pulled the trigger. He put the down payment on the venue. He started this thing, even knowing that was a thing. So sometimes you can get over that kind of stuff. And sometimes the best way to do that is just to pull the trigger and like, okay, there's no looking back now. I get to do this. So,
yeah. And as much as, I wouldn't say I guess if I don't know you, or I don't think we have anything in common,
I'm the same way.
Then I am very introverted. But if I do know you, then I'm very, like, people that come to the drink and draws, or people that have been coming to the free comic book day events that I've been promoting for the last decade, they would say I'm one of the least introverted people, because
because they're into the same stuff. They're creators,
Right.
It's so easy to talk to other creators.
Yeah. And also part of who I am is also I'm a control freak.
I mean, you're a cartoonist. It's inevitable.
It's funny. I'm not a control freak in my work. I'm happy. I would happily just like ink a book or color a book. I don't need to know I don't need to be involved in decision making and stuff like that. But on certain things, like me and my studio mate, we drove to that show in Charlotte one year, and I picked him up, and I had already driven from Flagstaff to Phoenix, and I picked him up, and then I just started driving, and then somewhere around like Arkansas, I just looked at him and I said, I'm just going to drive the whole way, because he kept saying, like, do you need me to take over? And at one point I'm like, I'm just going to do it. And then coming back, I think he drove a little bit, and then I was like, I'll just do the rest of the way. Like, it's a weird, I don't know. I like challenging myself on these challenges that no one but me will ever care about. Like
Yeah.
to me, it was very important to drive straight through and do the whole drive myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
But no, everyone else would be like, well, that's ridiculous. What's the point of that? And I couldn't tell you what the point of that is, other than it was important to me at the time. So if someone other than myself put this event on, I would love to be a guest at it.
Yeah.
But I would still feel like, oh man, like I would have done this or I would have done that. Like and I'm not saying what I'm doing is 100% the right way to do it. I'm just saying the way my brain works is I think I'm the only person that can do it, or at least do it the way that I think it should be done, which are two different things. It doesn't mean it's right. It just means in my brain, when I have to lay my head down on my pillow at night and go over every mistake I've made since I was 5, it's, did I do what I think I could? Did I do the best thing that I think I could do? And that's kind of where I go with this.
I think that like what I think what I meant by like the cartoonist comment too was kind of in regards to there's this common trait with a lot of creators where half of what drives you to like come up with a comic concept or a script or something like that is for some stupid reason you think you can do it. Like, you know what I mean? And I think there's that common tie with a lot of creators where it's just like sort of an attitude of like, this property needs to exist, so I'm just going to make it, or this convention needs to exist because I'm going to make it. And I think that's really awesome. And again, like, you know, at least then when you do it, you can own the mistakes and the successes of it and be like, those are mine, you know, like that's awesome. I don't know. So yeah, anyhow, go ahead, Scott, I cut you off.
No, I was laughing at what Jim was saying. But what was I going to say? Oh, the other thing I was going to say is, you know, when Ryan says he wanted to do this because he wanted to do it his way and everything. But the cool thing, if you're like Ryan and you're somewhere else, I mean, we could use more of this type of show somewhere 100%. Else. So you look at what Ryan did and maybe start something in your area. I mean, who knows? I mean, yeah, especially if you have connections with the creators in your area, you know.
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to say who it is because I don't know if it's public knowledge or if he's really started anything yet. But I've heard about a friend of mine or a guy I know who moved to a new city, kind of in the Midwest or Mid-South, and he's kind of doing the same thing. Like he's got some partners, or Con brought him in to kind of be the liaison to run the show or whatever, at least as far as guests go. And that's really what we need. Like, you know, when I really get on my high horse, I think we need more editors in comics who are artists. And I also think we need more people working conventions who are working creators. And like I said, that show Heroes that my buddy would not answer those emails sometimes. He was a working colorist. And so he probably had every creator he knows being like, can I get a table? Can I get a table? Right. And he doesn't do that anymore. And I'm sure the appeal of it will run out sooner rather than later. Who knows? But we know what we want to see in a show because we've been to so many shows where they're doing what we don't want to see.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of one of my worries was I'm going to have guests out at this show. Some of them are coming in from like California, other states. And it's like, I can't give them the same, like I said, I can't pay per diems. I can't pay, I can't really feed the guests at the show. I don't have a catered lunch at the show, all this other stuff. And I was sitting there feeling terrible about it, just wondering like, oh, they must just be like, what kind of low rent show did I agree to go to? And that's not the feedback I got back from these guests. Like it was sort of like, we love what you're doing. We're proud to be part of the start of what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And it just goes to show like I know what I wanted to see in a show, and I assume a lot of other creators feel the same way. And if I lean into that, then I feel like it's the right way to go. And any misstep might be a minor misstep, but it's better to under promise and over deliver. And that's kind of, keep it small, even next year, I feel like I could invest a lot more money and try to make this such a much bigger event next year. Me and my partner, maybe we try to go all out next year, but why do that? Why not have it at this venue that only has 100 tables for another 2-3 years? Why not sell the event out before, like Lake Como in Italy? Why not sell the tickets out weeks in advance and then just be like, sorry, like I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is what it is. Like, because to me, it's not about like, what's the bigger venue? Can we sell another 1,000 tickets? To me, it's like, did we meet our goals, and did the creators and the attendees enjoy themselves? And did everyone just have a really great weekend? You know, and not, can I retire off this, or can I make this my only job? You know, there's a lot of conventions where that's their only job, is they put on a convention once or twice a year. You know, I don't ever see myself. I'm not saying I wouldn't want to be that guy. And if conventions want to hire me to be a liaison, or kind of, you know, help run their shows, I'm not against that either. I kind of like doing this stuff, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, it's not about bigger, more money, growing.
Yeah, it sounds like
it's about cultivating and really teaching, not teaching, because that implies the fan base doesn't know what they're doing, but kind of guiding a fan base into this, like, come to this show and buy art. You know, you go to that other show and you can buy your, you know, your bedazzled purse with like a Minecraft thing on it, or you can drink your like, you know, your mug of your golden mug of soda pop all day.
Yeah,
you could do that at other shows. You come to this show and you buy art and you pick up comics.
I like it.
That's what we want.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to bring some more. I'm gonna do some kind of groundwork and try to get some more people in the doors, because Jim wants to come down. He's in LA. Josh is in LA. Whether we get in the show or not, we'll definitely want to go attend the show. So just mark it on your. When's the next show again? Next year?
It is March 9th, 2024. It'll be in the middle of spring training. It'll be right before NCAA tournament kicks off, and it'll be a perfect time to be in Phoenix. I think we were the end of February this year. It's gonna be great. Second weekend in March, and like I said, every event, again, even though it's a one-day event, I'll plug my free comic book stuff. Even though it's a one-day event, you know, we sandwich it with other stuff. So like this year, May 5th, drink and draw at the Foundry that evening. May 6th, free comic book day at the 2 Samurai stores, one in Mesa, one in Chandler. Samurai has 4 stores. We're taking over 2 of them. And then May 7th, the Sunday, Derek Robertson's doing a CGC signing at Brandon's Comics in Tempe. So Derek and Andrew were supposed to come out for ASCAF, and they both had to cancel. And so they're 2 of the maybe 4 biggest guests, and they both had to cancel. It was kind of a real eye-opener to kind of like, nothing set in stone. Mm-hmm. But we're lucky to get them both out again. And like I said, there's a lot of people who wanted to get some of their Derek Robertson stuff signed, CGC done. So that's on Sunday, May 7th at Brandon's Comics in Tempe. But yeah, even like next year's event, like I said, we'll do something Friday night, the event all day Saturday. And we might even do, like, who knows, maybe we'll do like another panel with brunch or something on Sunday. You know, that's the gift of having the Foundry as our hotel partner, is that they're a full restaurant as well. They're a bar restaurant as well. So we could do a brunch with the guests or something, you know, who knows what we could do.
Yeah.
But it's something that won't have the guests or the creators spending another 7 hours behind a table. Like, that's not going to happen. So it could be like Bloody Mary brunch with creators, you know, who knows? But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. So Jim and Josh, we just got a new trundle bed that I got to assemble, but that'll be in the guest room, so there'll be room for 2 beds in there. You guys can crash here, and we can, we'll have some fun. So yeah, mark that on your calendar. So I'm also curious about I'm curious about the drink and draw. Do you do that like on a regular basis, or?
So obviously, when I was gone for a decade, because I started in 2007, and then I was gone for 10 years. So we do it semi-regularly. I would say maybe not monthly, but more than 6 times a year. And, a lot of times, and again, this is kind of me, as I mentioned earlier, I'm the arbiter of taste for comic creators, apparently, in the Valley. But for me, for a while, it was kind of like I wanted to keep it a private event, where like I have 20 names on my list or 30 names on my list, because we didn't want, I think fanboy is not the right term, but you just don't want people there who don't know. Like if someone's there who doesn't know anyone else there, and they're just kind of being weird, then it makes it weird for everybody. So for a long time, this is a long way of me showing what a jerk I am, but for a long time, it was a private event. And there are still private ones that we'll do, but we'll also do these public ones because, again, I'm trying to give value to our partners, right? So if Foundry's our partner, I want to give them value. So I want to try to bring people in their door to a bar event. My partner, Mike Malvey, in this, he works for a brewery. So if he can set up a tap takeover at a brewery and we can do a drink and draw there that night, that helps both, organizations. So yeah, it's just fun. Like, if anyone was around in 2006, 2007, the drink and draw, Dan Panosian, Dave Johnson, Jeff Johnson, when that was kicking off in LA, it was, it's great. Everyone they made shirts. It was like a whole thing. Everybody loved it. And
Casey's. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. They were popping up everywhere. And so, like I said, I didn't want to just steal their name. I wanted to have Dan's permission to use the name, and I got that.
That's awesome.
And so, yeah, when we do public events, it's fun. I mean, I'm a guy who likes to throw back a few occasionally. So I don't really do a lot of drawing at the drink and draw, but it's a way to get these guys together who, being a cartoonist is such a solitary job. Like, you guys know this, it's so solitary. I have a Discord, channel with like me and two other dudes. Yeah. And when they're not on the Discord, I'm just like, man. I mean, luckily I have my studio mate. My studio mate's, in the studio most days with me. But it's not the same as being like just hanging out with your friends all day. And when I was a kid drawing comics, I was like, I'm going to be like at like Homage Studios or Gaijin Studios. I'm going to have like 15 other comic creators around me all times. And it's just going to be a laugh a minute and beers out of the fridge. And it's a laugh a minute and beers out of the fridge now, but it's me and another dude, So that's why I like the drink and draws. It's kind of like, let's keep this community together. And, and I'd be happy if someone else managed it, but I like managing it too. Again, if someone's going to do it, I would just criticize how they do it. So I might as well just do it. And then I'll just criticize myself.
I like that.
Yeah.
I started one a little while ago. Actually, Gary went to it, but and the goal was to do it monthly. And then I just, I got busy, and then COVID, and I kept saying I'm going to get back to it. So maybe I'll have to do that.
Yeah. It's so funny because you think, oh, once a month, everyone has time for once a month. And then the next month comes around, you're like, we just did it. Like, it just happened, like everyone has kids. Everyone's life is so busy that monthly seems almost impossible.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I can do it like every 6 weeks or so, that's fine. And, sometimes we've had ones where there's only been like 3 people at them, 4 people. And then we have one where there's like 15 people. And then like the big public ones that we do at the Foundry, sometimes we'll get like 20, 30 people at it. So, like I said, I just want to, as I get older, I get more kind of nostalgic and emotional, and I just want to hang out with my friends, So I have my core group of drink and draw dudes, my core group of local comic creators I like to hang out with. So it's all selfish. I mean, the show's selfish. It's all selfish. I just want to hang out with these people, and that's all it is.
Well, I don't know how selfish it is, because like I know a lot of people that are super excited about what you've created. So, and Gary had a question. It's kind of self-serving, but I'll just throw it up here. He wants to know, do you know when people can apply for a table? Will past exhibitors, cough, cough, get some sort of early pass at a table?
It's true, especially past exhibitors whose names start with G for some reason.
Yeah. I don't know. We haven't set a date exactly when we're going to open table sales. Like last year, being the first event, I probably opened them too early because I was panicking, am I even going to sell out these tables that are available, so probably did it too early last year. Probably looking at like 5 months out, opening it up 6 months out. So, September, October, once I kind of locked down, like, how many, because one thing we missed, we shot and missed a little bit on this one was we wanted more vendors, and we wanted more original art dealers. Because if I want a show that's focused on original art, I would like to have some original art dealers there.
Nice.
Yeah, that would be cool.
So we want to try to lock that down. We want to try to lock in some vendors, because we did have some comments about like we had 4, maybe 5 or 6 vendors at the show selling comics, but no real like old school, golden age, silver age kind of guys, right? We had some modern shops, and so we did have some comments about like people who would want to, they want to pick up a comic from like the 50s or 60s or some obscure, monster comic. So we kind of want to lock in how many tables can we get those guys in, before I know how many tables I can offer, and then again, it's just sort of still, even second year, I'm not going to really know what I'm doing,
Yeah.
So, but to answer Gary's question, probably September or so. And, I wouldn't say I'm not going to give preferential treatment to people that have been there, but, that goes a long way as well. If you supported me on year one, you're likely to get in on year two, but, again, no promises, who knows?
Yeah.
You're like, if your name starts with G, you may not, but other than that, like everyone else,
if your first name starts with G, maybe not, but if your last name starts with H, then maybe.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's a case by case basis, and
it's awesome.
Yeah, it's still something. Like, again, it's still something I struggle with. The whole curating thing, to me, is very important, but also something I struggle with probably the most.
Yeah.
I if I was in that position, I'd be the same way, because I like the idea kind of curated show, even though, I'm all for people getting into comics that maybe, that have a lot of room to grow and everything. But sometimes, but I also like it's a curated show, especially if you're curating like the stuff that has nothing to do with comics, and like, no, that's,
there's one guy I took a flyer on last year who he does comics that I don't, maybe some super indie comic stuff that I don't really personally buy, but he seemed eager and he seemed into it, and I was like, why not? Who am I to say no to this dude? And he's the one guy who didn't show up.
Really?
and I didn't hear from. So it's like, so again, like maybe they want to make the comics and they are making the comics. Maybe they're not ready to.
Yeah.
Maybe they weren't quite ready for an event of this size, even though it wasn't a big event. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, or maybe something just happened and I just never heard from them. Who knows? I don't even know why I brought that up. I'm trying to deflect that I'm a jerk, basically, but
you're doing good work. So
I don't think I'm hearing you say a lot of like self-deprecating and guilty things about curation, but like there's some real value for everybody, including the people that get turned down in that.
Yep.
Like I don't do as much in the comic world, but I've done a lot of like animation festivals and things, and like when you get in and it means something, that's different than when you get in and that everybody gets in. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like there's something to that, and there's an aspirational aspect of being able to do that as well. And then for those that are attending, I would rather attend a show that's been curated, because I've exhibited at a show before where the guy next to me wasn't even an artist. He was an artist alley, and he was a writer, and he was a comic book or he was a carnival barker, and just kind of it was awful. It was terrible, right?
He had
and
a megaphone,
sci-fi novel, and and I was like, that guy shouldn't be here. Yeah. And and so it's better for those that are exhibiting, it's better for those that are attending, and I think it's even better for those that are aspiring to get to a certain level, to have a benchmark of knowing, like, okay, like not everybody's getting in, and I was one of the ones that didn't get in, and maybe 3 or 4 years down the road, I can get in, because I think there's a lot of value in that. And I totally get, the feelings of guilt and everything along those lines of having to be that judge. Because as a teacher, I hate giving people poor grades, but I would rather the grade mean something than just everybody gets an A, or whatever.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think a lot of it goes to, and this is going to be me sounding like someone my age, but I think a lot of it goes to, like, when I grew up, like, I wouldn't even use the word constructive criticism. I would just say criticism was the daily, every adult criticized every child when I was growing up. And when I was in art school, vicious criticisms happened in art school.
Oh yeah.
And in today, a lot of these artists or these young people coming up, they're amazing artists because they have things like YouTube and they have all these, they can learn from every great artist before them and they can absorb and just, they're advancing at a level that is so rapid. It's insane. But also with that comes constant encouragement, you know, like I used to have my mom say like, oh, that's a great picture, or, you know, maybe a teacher, but now they have every person on their Instagram page saying like, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So there's no self-criticism. There's no self-reflection. There's no, so when something happens that's negative in their mind, I don't know if they can approach it. If not all of them at least can approach it, you know, like one of the things I say is the more someone likes their own work, the more like I question their ability to be a professional working artist. You know, like everyone I know and everyone I love, they are their own harshest critics. And the people who see no flaws in their own work, it's important to be confident. But if you can't acknowledge and even self-criticize,
oh yeah,
I don't think you're long for this career. You know, you're going to be a guy who might have, who knows, 100,000 followers on Instagram, but you might not be working all the time, and you might not be working with other creators. Might not be working in a team anywhere. You know, if you can't. You know, so that's just me being my old grumpy guy, being like, these kids these days, they can't take criticism.
Ryan, that reminds
there's something
me though,
to it.
Yeah, because like the best anthologies too are usually really, really heavily curated. Because like the worst anthologies you can pick up are usually the ones where it's like anyone gets in, and then you read this like just total, who knows, free for all kind of thing, and there might be a gem in there. But like really curated like anthologies, and we've had anthology editors on here too, and it's apparently like very similar organizing conventions where it's like you're not going to please everybody. You have to turn a lot of people down. And it's kind of a headache, like just getting everybody together. But like the better ones are all curated. And like part of curation is saying no for sure.
Right.
And on that note, like, I mean, outside of the comic book world, just in commercial art in general, it's like, dude, if you guys aren't comfortable, this is for anybody out there. If you are not comfortable hearing criticism, and it's just about like, will this image make us a lot of money? Then you're in trouble, because it really is like, if you can't deliver money through your images to in a commercial sense, like you're like, good luck. But you're going to get criticism. You're going to get people who don't get it. You're going to get people who don't get it and are right. That happens quite often too. So I'm excited about the curation. I think that's cool.
Yeah, and just going back to the whole like taking criticism or notes or whatever, you know, I don't get a lot of notes, and you know, I don't know if that's good or bad when I work in my comic stuff. But when I do get notes, they're almost always good notes. Like I make, you know, I'll sit there and I'll be like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. They want me to change this one little thing, and I change it, and I'm like, oh wow, that's better. So much better. You know, like because you know. Even being your own harshest critic, you only are looking at what you drew. You know? And how many times have we all like finished something and we're like, okay, that's good. I'm pleased with that. And then you look at it the next day and you're like, what was I thinking yesterday? This is terrible.
Yeah.
That's all that is.
The classic portrait where you're like, oh, this looks great. The next day you're like, I didn't draw a through line. The eyes are off. Like, what was I thinking? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had the opposite too, where you're like, I'm just not feeling this. And you take a break and come back. It's not too bad.
You're like, it's pretty good actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just flipping through something not that long ago that was a couple years old. And I remember being like, not pleased with it. And I'll be like, that's pretty good. You know, or a book I just finished. I was like, oh, I can't believe like, you know, I can't, you know, when someone gives me a compliment on this, they're just lying to me because it's, and then like, you know, give it some space and go back to it and be like, oh, it's pretty good. Like, I like how I drew that. I like how I did that. You know, so yeah, it can go both ways. But I do think that the immediate gratification of strangers is not good for the mentality of creative people.
That's a good point.
Because they're
not great for society in general.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think like as humans, we're not really built to like be connected to more than a couple hundred people. like
Mhm.
mentally. And so you do that in a society where it's like you can connect with anyone in the world. And I don't think our brains handle it well. And yeah, and having like constant anonymous criticism or constant praise without like a real human connection. There's some like humanity stripped in that type of communication is not good.
Yeah, and also like having your aunt say she likes your drawing and having an editor say he likes your drawing is they're both saying they like the drawing, but one carries all the weight in the world and one carries no weight. I love my mom, but like her praising my work has never furthered my career. So
Ryan, that's such a good point too. And like I do feel like there was a point, I don't know, maybe this is where we're just going to sound like venting old men or something, but it's like there was a point when in art school where it was like the culling, where it's like the people who weren't serious about art, at least in the illustration program where I went, they like bailed out. Like it was like, okay, here's the cornucopia full of all the art supplies, fight to the death to get it. Not really, but I mean, it was competitive. And it was definitely, there was this wake up moment that like every new art student, including myself, had, where it's like you come as like the new hot shit from your high school or whatever, and suddenly you realize you suck. Like it's like this harsh reality of like, oh wow, I was a big fish in this tiny pond, and now I'm in an ocean full of like giant sharks, and I need to learn how to do this because this is pretty amazing. But it's like that cutthroat nature of it, and the fact that there were these really high bar expectations just to even get in the program and then to stay in the program and to specialize. Like it really creates tight-knit bonds with those people you went to school with, but it also makes such better artists, and it makes you resilient for the industry, because it's like otherwise you're gonna get eaten alive, like so.
I just had a thought, and I'll cut you guys in on the profits, but a shirt that says I was hot shit in high school art would go over well at a Comic-Con. But yeah, it's that thing. Like when I was growing up, I had like 5 people tell me that I was a good artist, and nowadays you can go on social media and 500 people can tell you that in one day. And that doesn't bode well.
No,
like for self-improvement. I don't know, but I'm also not a guy who leans too much into self-improvement. Like if I get a note on something and I'm not getting paid to change it, I'm not changing it. So it's like, it's, to me, it's a work, it's a job.
Yep.
For some people being an artist is a calling. For me, it's just a job, and I'm not skilled at anything else. So.
Yeah, I always say that there's no plan B, so I got to figure out how to do this. But
exactly.
I always feel like if you're making a living as an artist, you've cheated the system. And
I don't like. I know you said that all the time, Joe. I don't like that thought, because I don't know. I think because I think artists should be getting paid, and they should be respected and everything. To say you're kind of cheating it, I don't know, but yeah,
I just mean you're cheating the system, because like corporate bigwigs just suck and usually want to suck the lifeblood out of anything. So if you're able to get paid to draw, good job. That's all
I don't think you. I mean, I think I don't know. I don't think you should feel like I don't know.
You shouldn't feel like a dick asking for payment for work.
Right.
That's a huge thing.
I guess that's what I'm getting at. No, you deserve to be able to do this. You're not.
Yeah, I should clarify that when I say those kind of things, because like, you're not doing people a favor when you're doing them artwork. You're making a product for them. And, just like you should treat it like a plumber treats a plumbing job. Like you're going to give a quote. You're going to live up to that quote. If they second guess your quote, tell them to get a cheaper, crappier plumber. Hold yourself to the same standard that contract labor holds to, and all of that. Sorry, but I'm with you.
That's probably the number one advice I tell people, and the second one is it's a job. So if you think it's all going to be wonderful every day in and day out, it's not. It's just like any other job. 90% of the time it sucks.
Yeah.
You know, but the highs are high, you know, like
Yeah. I still like the quote that if you're doing what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. That's what I feel like. I mean, and not that it's not work, but and
yeah.
maybe you disagree, but I don't know. I
Yeah.
love what I do and I have fun doing it. So
To me, it's
not
all
always
work.
easy, but yeah.
Yeah.
I like that, Ryan. I think I'm more on your side, Ryan, with that kind of thing. Where one of my favorite quotes about comics was when I was just beginning cartooning, I was like, I hate this. This really sucks, and I just thought it was horrible the whole time I was doing it. But it was like getting the result I wanted for once. But I was like so confused about it, and then I went to this Masters of American Comics show, and Chris Ware did a lecture. He's one of my favorite cartoonists in the world, and he started it with so at the end after the lecture he answered this question of like a cartoonist who was like, what advice would you give like a struggling new cartoonist? And he's like, oh, it's miserable. That's the advice I'd give. He's like, it sucks, you're gonna hate it. And he's like, and the thing is, if you're a cartoonist, I'm gonna say that, and that's not gonna discourage you because you have to do it. But he's like, but just understand when you're there laboring over your work, you're gonna hate it, and you're gonna hate like probably about 90% of it. And like I've found that very true in my life. I'm like, I don't know, sometimes I don't even know why I continue it, but I do. And I remember that quote because I'm like, if Chris Ware hates it, I can hate it too.
There's that Kirby. Well, it's attributed to Kirby. I can't verify whether he said it or not, but it's comics will break your heart, kid, and they will. Yeah. Like it's just, I essentially for the last, probably almost 50. Yeah, well, no, probably like 14 years, have been able to work in the field that would have been that is my dream field. Something I've been wanting to do since I don't know, Youngblood #1 came out, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the future. Yeah, I've been able to work in that for the longest time, and with the help of a very supportive spouse and stuff, like I've made it work, and it's not all fun and games, and it's just like any other job. It's probably more bad times than good times, but again, when the times are good, man, they're good. When you do something that you're happy with, and I let myself feel good about the ASCAF for like the first couple hours, maybe the first day after it was over. I was like, oh, that was good. That's awesome. And then I started thinking like, oh, did I do this right? Did I do that? Like you
did a good thing, Ryan. I mean, I'm so happy that you did.
It is exciting.
That. Yeah. Is there anything, we're rounding out in the hour and a half. Is there anything that you wanted to mention that we didn't get to talk about or anything like that?
No, I don't think so. I would just encourage people to go to azcomicartfest.com. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. You can Google us in all of your feeds. You can Google me. Again, I didn't know how much I wanted my involvement in this to be public, but it quickly became like someone has to be the public face of it. So that's what I did. But yeah, just, we're not doing the yearly event. Like I said, we have a Free Comic Day event coming up. We might do like really small, like bar events. Like I said, like who knows, like maybe a new brewery's opening. Maybe we'll have 2 or 3 artists out there, or, if someone like John Layman has a new book coming out, maybe we'll coordinate with him and we'll do a signing at a bar or at a brewery or something like that. Just a way to keep branding events and just doing fun comic focused stuff.
Do you have a mailing list, or if I'm already show the interest in the AZ Comic Fest, am I on that already? Because I think I thought I did get some alerts about things, and I just want to make sure that I am still getting those. If you are, there's a
Substack. So that's kind of our mailing list, and you can. I think the pin post maybe on our Twitter account, but also if you go to azcomicartfest.com, it's like the second post down. I'll probably bump that up, but we had to promote Free Comic Book Day. But yeah, you can subscribe to our Substack, and everything about that I announced there. So when tables are going to go on sale, I'm going to announce that. Guest announcements, they'll all go there.
Awesome. Yeah. I think Gary was talking about possible bribery for the next one. He was saying he might have to show up at the drink and draw and buy you some drinks.
Look, I would never turn down free drinks, but I can't. For me to say I can never be bribed is complete BS as well. But I'm a man of I stick to my words, and I stick to my word and my words, and yeah, who knows, but
Word.
yeah, I was thrilled with the first event and all the creators we had there, and I couldn't. It wouldn't have been it with everyone who had a table there. Someone came to that show to see them, so someone bought a ticket because of someone who had a table there, and I'm forever grateful to everyone that did that. So
Nice.
Yeah, and and if you got friends in Arizona and you're a fan of comics and you're not too far, maybe make a pilgrimage around that time down and come see the show, because I know I'm gonna try to loop Josh in to come down, Jim, and let's go. We're always looking for good reasons to get together and hang out. So let's make a date for the next Arizona Comics Art Fest. So let's go around the room one more time, and we'll just kind of mention who we are and close the show out and anything we want to promote. We'll start off with Josh here.
Awesome. So again, you can get my books at joshuakemble.com. My 2 graphic novels that are currently out are 2 Stories and Jacob's Apartment. And you can get those at bookstores everywhere, or ask your local comic shop or library to order those. And then if you want to see me working on my 3rd graphic novel, Not Death But Love, the strange supernatural story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning, for Turner Publishing, you can check out my YouTube, where I work on pages while live streaming, and sometimes also dominate the world of Risk because I'm a nerd. Also, I'm really excited to check out I just discovered this new music podcast that I'm excited to check out. So I'm going to have to check that out after this. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And Corey.
You can find my stuff at coreykerr.com. I've got t-shirts and all that jazz up there. But I'll be continuing to do email newsletters, so jump on the newsletter. And if you're not into Substack yet, get over on that, because I think it's way better than everything else.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. We were going to get to you next anyway.
Okay. I just want to point out, I love that Corey's wearing a Hellboy shirt and a Firefox hat.
Yep. Yeah, I'm all about the free and open indie scene, man. So yeah.
The Mozilla Firefox. People just follow me. Go to my website, super75studios.com, or if you just Google Ryan Cody comics, it'll come up. A lot of my stuff's branded under Super 75 Studios. Twitter's still just my name. I have a branding issue, but I make comics. I color comics. I love coloring comics more than I love drawing comics. And apparently I like putting on events and being the guy who runs things. This man awesome. With his fingers and all the whatever that phrase is.
That's right.
Yeah.
The puppet master.
Yeah, and just go and both of those links to both Arizona Comics Art Fest and Comic Book Art Fest and Super 75 Studios are available in the description, so you can just click on those if you don't want to type them in. As far as me, you can find my stuff at circworks.com. I've got comics, I've got digital products, tools, and things that help you make comics. If you go to my YouTube page, just search Circworks on YouTube. I've got a series called Making Comics 101. It is just a huge playlist and it's structured, so you can start. If you want to learn how to do pencil, you can do pencil. If you're going to want to learn how to ink, coloring, anything you want, you can just go to individual videos, or you can start from the beginning and watch the whole thing through. It's pretty much the most comprehensive course on creating comics that you'll find for free, and it's on my YouTube channel. So definitely check that out. And then this show, the Artcasters, we do this show pretty much every single week. The confusing part about it is it kind of rotates around. It used to rotate around all 3 of our channels. Now it's just going to kind of stick to Josh and Corey's channel. We've got a different guest every week. We've got a different topic, all that stuff. So if you want to know exactly where we're going to be, all that stuff, there is a link in the description to our Substack for Artcasters. And we don't spam you or anything. All we do is usually about 30 minutes or so before we go live, we'll send you an email so you know who the guest is, whose channel it's going to be on. You just click that, and then you can join us live. And speaking of that, I wanted to thank everyone who has joined us live in the chat and everyone that will be watching after the fact. We'll be back next week with another guest. And And I want to thank Ryan for coming on, and again, just thank him for doing Arizona Comic Book Art Fest, because we really need that, and hopefully leave a model for other people in other areas to do the same thing, because we got away from comics, like Ryan said. I'm a fan of the pop culture stuff just as much as anybody, but we also need a space just for comics, because that's what the comic convention used to be about, is comics, and not so much anymore. So anyway, thanks Ryan for that, and we will see everyone. We'll see everyone next week.
All right, thanks guys, I appreciate it. It's fun.
Yeah, awesome.